get this started. We think everybody finally has dessert. Okay, I would like to wish everybody good evening. My name is Mary Beth Schneidler, and I have been with this Westlake alumni group since the very beginning, since it was started. I'd also like to thank Megan before I begin for the nice prayer before the meal. Mike McLean was going to do that for us tonight, and late this afternoon he didn't feel well enough to come. So we do miss having him here, but I thought Megan just did a beautiful job, so I thank Megan for that. This is our 10th induction ceremony of 4 outstanding individuals into the Dover Westlake Hall of Fame. It's been a pleasure to be a founding member of that group. The organization began in 1988. And I love this crowd because I don't feel like I'm the oldest one here. So that's nice. It's a nice mixture, and I'm so glad that everybody is here. And to me personally, it is like being back at Westlake, because to me this is Westlake. New friends, old friends, teachers, students, there's many of them here. In fact, I was sharing before we began that all 4 of the inductees tonight I have some connection with. And that's not always true, but tonight I either grew up with them, had them as a student, or they were my teachers, or I was on the staff with them at Westlake. So I just feel so honored to be here with all of you tonight. I'd like to begin by giving you a little bit of a history of the Dover Westlake alumni. A lot of people say to us, why are we Dover Westlake alumni? We're Westlake High School. I did find some people tonight that really didn't know the story about Dover, and way back, prior to 1947, Westlake was named Dover. And because of the confusion with the other Dover, notice I say the other Dover, a lot of our things that were to be sent here were sent to that Dover, and they decided that they were going to change the name. So the name of Westlake, Dover, became Westlake, and Westlake High School became Westlake High School in 1951. Now, I was looking around the room. I don't think we have any Dover graduates here tonight, but we have inducted a lot of them into the Dover Westlake Hall of Fame because of all the contributions they made and the start that they gave us. Westlake High School was originally housed at the Red Brick, and this is when it gets really confusing, because Westlake High School was housed in the Red Brick, and then Westlake High School went to became Dover High School, which was the old Bernison, and then they eventually changed their name to Westlake and went over to the Westlake High School, and then Bernison was demolished, and we got another Bernison. And then Bernison moved over to the other side of the parking lot, and now we have Dover Intermediate School and Dover Elementary. So I hope you're with me on that. We've at least hung on to Dover. Bernison's working its way around. The Dover Westlake Alumni Association was founded with the help of the Westlake Educational Foundation. Those involved in the beginning of this venture were outstanding graduates Greg Foster in the class of '66, Scott Thompson in the class of '60, Jane Pease in the class of '38, Louise Pease Winkler in the class of '49. Now those are all Dover graduates. Ed Geiger in the class of '43, Dell Youngless in the class of '81, and myself. We all had the pleasure of being involved from the very beginning. We were established with one goal in mind: to renew the bond between alumni and our current students and staff, and to preserve the traditions of Westlake High School. That sounds like a mission statement, doesn't it? That's exactly what it is. To achieve this, we have maintained a database of as many graduates as we possibly could. We have awarded a scholarship to a graduating senior the past 27 years. We've assisted classes when needed to hold their class reunions, and we've inducted members into the Westlake Hall of Fame and assisted the school district whenever we could. We are in need of fundraising, as every group is. Also, we'd like more opportunities to raise money so that we can continue all the things that we've done in the past, especially the one we're doing tonight. Now, I will tell you that last year I had a lot more to say, and I was told, cut it. So I cut it so that we can get to the important part of this. Tonight we're celebrating the induction of 4 outstanding members into the Hall of Fame in the categories of Distinguished, Athletic, and Honorary. We are also presenting a Lifetime Achievement Award, only for the second time, to the Dean family for their decades of assistance to the schools and the community. Planning this evening has been the group effort of a very hard-working committee. I would like to personally thank, of course, Mike McLean, who's not here in the class of it's hard to say, '04. Jeff Chase in the class of '65, Mike Antonishin in the class of '68, Megan Motu, who's been in the class of 90, 91, 92, 93, but we're going to say 82. Tonight, in her true class, the class of 92. Beth Vancic in the class of 65. Dell Younglis, who was unable to make it, in the class of 81. And we'd also like to thank Tony Cipollone, over there, because he's also been very instrumental in helping us to get this up and rolling over the past couple years. I'd also like to share with you the plaques on both sides of me. We have been working hard to improve the Wall of Fame. We've redone a lot of them. The new inductee plaques are on this side, and we're working on, I hate to say the old inductees, previous inductees. We have a couple from way back. We have mine from way back, and we have last year's, several from last year. We are working on getting all of them done, and we do hope to place those in Westlake High School so that the students can see it, so they are predominantly displayed so they can see what past graduates have done. That's been a true goal of ours for at least the last 10 years. We really want to thank the Westlake Town Criers and Nick Mayor Lincoln for providing the funds to be able to do this. So I would like to clap for them because they've done a great job. And at this time, since you'll see it's the next thing on the program, I would like to invite Tony Cipollone up.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Good evening. On behalf of the Westlake City School District and the Athletic Department, I would like to welcome everybody, congratulate our new inductees, and just thank everybody for being here. I've been the Director of Athletics here. This is my 8th year. This is my 2nd induction ceremony, so you can see where we're going. We have a lot of catching up to do, and there's a lot of worthy people that need to be in this Hall of Fame, and we're going to catch up. And through the great group here, Mary Beth and her group, we are excited about the future. Also want to welcome any of our other alumni that have come back into Westlake for this ceremony. We hope to see you tomorrow night at the parade and the football game. I know our team's not doing well this year, but it's still homecoming and it's still a parade and there's still a lot of activities going on. Our booster club is having a free tailgate right after the parade, so please stop by there and meet some of our current students and some of our great parents that put those things together. We have some great things going on in our athletic department. I hope that you follow us on our website, westlakeathletics.org, also in our Twitter and Facebook and all those different social media things that some of you do and some of you don't, but we try to get a lot of publicity out there for our kids. Our goal this year, one of our goals this year, is to promote our student athletes and show you all the great things that they're doing. I just had an opportunity. We had our first student athlete leadership meeting of the year on Monday night, and typically I've gotten between 20 and 25 kids there. Monday night I had 68 student athletes there, and it was great. They were very talkative. They had a lot of great ideas, and if I could list all the things besides sports that those kids do, it's unbelievable. And we, as administrators and teachers, we have to do a better job of promoting them. The other thing that we want to do, as Mary Beth said, is we want to do a really good job of making sure they understand the history of Westlake. Mr. Goggins here tonight, our superintendent, and he knows that one of my things is passion for the W. I believe that if you go to Westlake and you're in our schools, you should have passion for the W. When you put that on your chest in a uniform or in your helmet or whatever you're wearing, you should have passion for that W. It should mean something to you, and that's something that we're we're really trying to instill in our student athletes. It's a work in progress, and we are going to get some help here. I'm going to bring somebody up here, but before I do, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the history of our booster club. So when I came here 8 years ago, the first conversation I had with our booster president at the time was about dissolving the booster club. So if you can imagine that, those of you that are in school districts, like not having a booster club at all was pretty shocking to me. There was 3 people at that meeting, myself and 2, the booster president and I think the vice president, and less than $1,000 in the bank. Fast forward to today. In the last 3 years or last 4 years, our booster club has funded over $200,000 worth of equipment and different things for our teams. They have done an outstanding job through the leadership of the past president, Ed Blair, and our current president, Gina Rettinger. And they are dedicated to the goal of improving our athletics and improving the experiences of our student athletes and generally our students, because not only are our students our student athletes, they are in so many other things in our school district. And so one of the things that Gina, who will come up here in a second, one of the things that her and I have talked about is getting these up on display, but also we are in an initiative now to get all of our old things that used to be in the old school, the all-state plaques, all those things. We don't want to put old ones up, we want to put new ones up. And we want them to look like this. We want everything to look uniformed, but we want them up. So when our kids walk down, they can say, I want to be like that person, and I want to be like these people. And so that's one of our initiatives. So if you have a chance to help us out, or if you have ideas, I know Mary Beth and her group would like to hear from you. But right now, I'm going to introduce you to Gina Rettinger, who's our Westlake Demon Athletic Boosters president. Thank you.
Joe. Thank you, Tony. And thank you, Dover Westlake Alumni Association, for letting me share some brief information about the Westlake Demon Athletic Boosters, or WDAB is what we like to call ourselves. The Athletic Boosters have come a long way, as Tony shared, in a very short period of time. Just 3.5 years ago, a once flourishing organization, many of you knew as the Demons Club, had dwindled down to just a handful of people with little fundraising and no ability to fund the needs of our athletic teams. In that span of just 3.5 years, like Tony said, with the help of many people, a new name, new culture, and new strategies, we've been able to breathe life into the Athletic Boosters with our mission of all athletics, one goal. Since then, our efforts have resulted in nearly $200,000 in funding all of our athletic teams at both Lee Burnison Middle School and Westlake High School. WDAB has replaced nearly every uniform and helmet to every single athlete and funded new equipment like scoreboards, underwater cameras, stopwatches, pole vault pits, hurdles, football sleds, soccer nets, indoor training, and the list goes on and on. We are most proud of our campaign that funded a new state-of-the-art weight room at Westlake High School 2 years ago. The facility is really one of the best in the SWC and an example of what we can accomplish when we all work together. And in early 2018, WDAB is excited that we will be opening our first permanent spiritwear store at Westlake High School and embarking on the initiative to drastically improve our athletic wing at Westlake High School. We continue to appreciate the support of our board, Tony Cipollone, Paul Wilson, and Scott Goggin. Without your help and support, we just couldn't get this done. Many alumni are actively involved with the Westlake Boosters as members and volunteers. We invite you to join us as a member. Membership from our families, which is now about 300 strong, is the lifeblood of what we are able to accomplish for our teams. And I do have forms. They're back in the corner. So if you haven't had a chance to join, you can pick up a form back there, and our website is on there, so you can check us out there too. We invite you, as Tony said, to join us for the pregame homecoming parade and tailgate tomorrow. We'll have free food and drink along with the Alumni Association will be there with us. So come join us and meet some new friends and see some old ones. We do have a fun group. We have a lot of fun outside of the fundraising that we do. We do have a OSU Michigan watch party scheduled for Saturday, November 25th at Panini's here in Westlake. So come join us and have some fun. And we are proud to support this Alumni Association. We've been a financial donor to this evening for the past 2 years, and we're proud to partner with them. Congratulations to the Hall of Fame class of 2017 inductees. We salute you for all of your accomplishments, and thank you for your role in advancing Westlake schools. Go Demons.
So before I turn it back over to Mary Beth Schneider, I did want to introduce two of our other administrators that are here tonight. Sitting right over here is our principal at Westlake High School, Paul Wilson, brand new. And then sitting at this table over here is our superintendent, Mr. Scott Goggin. And now I will turn it back over to Mary Beth.
You took away my introduction.
Sorry.
They're making me change all my notes. Before we move on, I would like to say that they also the forms are back there for the Demon boosters, but we also have forms for nominations and to get emails of people that are Westlake alumni. You're welcome to nominate somebody to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. We can explain the criteria. I won't take time right now, but basically someone 10 years out from Westlake High School can be considered. And the categories are: the distinguished is for outstanding contributions, athletic, of course, is for in athletics, and the honorary is for recognizing people that have been very important to the community and the school district that are not Westlake graduates. So those are the three categories that we have, plus we have the Lifetime Achievement. We've awarded, this will be our second Lifetime Achievement. The first one was for Bill and Gloria Schallenberger, which I know a lot of you in this room remember Bill and Gloria Schallenberger. They were our first Lifetime Achievement Award winners for everything they had done for Westlake High School and the community. And tonight we'll be honoring a second family for their contribution. So there's three categories for the Hall of Fame. We would love to take input from you for nominations, and then there's also the Lifetime Achievement. So I didn't want to forget that. Now, for those of you that know me, music is important too. So our next speaker is going to be Amy Morgardi, and she's here from the Music Boosters.
Thank you, Mary Beth. First of all, I would like to say thank you to everybody for being here tonight. Congratulations to all of those that are being inducted tonight. I am very proud to be here this evening representing the Westlake Music Boosters. I'm here with my husband, Pete, who is an alumni of Westlake High School, class of 1985. We have 3 children, a 10th grader, an 8th grader, and a 6th grader. And all of us are proud to be part of a school district that emphasizes excellence. We've heard about our excellence in athletics. We have excellence in academics, but we also have excellence in the arts. The mission of the Music Boosters is to support and promote the arts through musical education and performance in our schools for all students, in all grades, and in all forms. Currently, the Westlake High School Music Department offers marching band, debonaires, demonettes, symphonic and concert band, 2 orchestras, 2 jazz ensembles, 6 choirs, and 2 theater productions each year. Wow. Currently, thanks to Mr. Wilson today for getting me the numbers, 419 Westlake High School students are enrolled in the music programs this year. The total high school enrollment is 1,202. So even with some students participating in multiple music classes, this is extremely impressive. Nearly 1/3 of our class enrollment is choosing to participate in music programs. Generous support and contributions allowed the Music Boosters in the last 2 years to do many things. We allocated $10,000 to support pre-kindergarten through 12th grade music programs in our district, purchase a brand new drum line for the Demon Marching Band, purchased 6 baritones, a tuba, and an oboe for the DIS band program, purchase a timpani for the Lee Burnison band program, sponsor our Westlake High School choral and instrumental groups at the OMEA contests. We awarded over $4,200 for students to attend summer music workshops, purchase vibes and a bass trombone for Westlake High School, fund professional specialists to provide lessons at DIS on oboe, French horn, tuba, and the bassoon, and a percussion specialist at the Westlake High School. We donated $10,000 towards the installation of the turf at the high school, and we pay for repairs to school-owned instruments at all of the schools, DIS, Lee Burnison, and Westlake High School. Although we have accomplished so much, there's always so much work to be done, as we all know. We would love for our alumni to be part of this wonderful Westlake tradition. Maybe you want to attend one of the wonderful concerts throughout the year, see the marching band in action at a football game, attend the fall musical, or jump right in and become a member of the Westlake Music Boosters. A large portion of our contributions come from our memberships. I do also, as everybody here, have flyers, so you'll go home with lots of paperwork. If you would like to be a part of the Westlake Music Boosters, we would love to have you. There's also a form that you can put on just for your email if you would like to get information about the programs that we do have and a schedule. And most of all, I just want to say, just consider supporting our youth excel in the arts. It's something that they could use for a lifetime. Thank you very much for your time.
I think we're all here because we're passionate about Westlake. And what makes us passionate about Westlake is all the things that Westlake has to offer. For those of you that know me or any member of the alumni committee that's been working on this, nothing has been more important to us than Westlake. From the very beginning of our school years all the way through. I started Westlake in kindergarten and went all the way through and then came back and taught in Westlake. And I think it would be very hard for me to ever leave Westlake, and I think a lot of us feel that way. So now I'll start with the introductions, even though some of them have already been made. I was going to start with Scott Goggin, our superintendent. Also, I was going to go to our school board members, which we're very happy they're here. Joe Kraft and Dr. Carol Winter are back there. We also have Paul Wilson, our principal, which I'm so glad that he's come. We have such a nice group supporting us in our alumni programs that we want to keep doing, and without that support, we couldn't have gotten to this. So we really appreciate that. I'd also like to introduce some of the previous inductees that are here tonight. So if they would stand or wave their hand, they deserve some recognition also. There's Larry Nickel. Al Smith. Tom Hill. Marilyn and Les Demeline were supposed to be here, and I'm a little concerned that they didn't make it because they're such a wonderful couple. Also, Mike Antonishin. Bob Clancy, and Dr. Jennifer Pasota had a dental patient that was going to be running a little bit late today, and she'd hoped to make it, so if she does arrive, we'll be sure and introduce her. It was sort of nice to introduce Mike and Bob, and, well, if Jennifer would have been here, as old inductees now. They were inducted last year. So this brings us finally to the reason that we are gathered here tonight, the induction of 4 outstanding members into the Hall of Fame in the categories of Distinguished, Athletic, Honorary, and our Lifetime Achievement categories. We're going to begin with our Distinguished candidate, and I'm going to start by introducing Mark Namick, a 1985 graduate of Westlake, to present Tom Barris.
Good evening. I'll use this mic. I want to thank the Dover Westlake Alumni Association for keeping the spirit of Westlake alive It is an honor to be here. I graduated, as you mentioned, in 1985. That is pre-Crocker Park. Okay? I know that's sort of the touchstone now for all the millennials here. My parents still live in Westlake off of Canterbury, and I don't believe they've been there yet. Anyway, I do feel a little cheated in my high school days because it was only 3 years. I somehow forgot that freshman year at Parkside, but Pete McGordy will remind me. On a positive note, though, I was in this building, perhaps this room, at some point during my high school for probably a homecoming event. And proud to say it hasn't changed a bit. The chicken is better, for sure. I contemplated not introducing Tom Barris today because after graduating from Westlake in 1968, Tom found his way back to Rocky River, not Westlake. Now, during my era of high school, Rocky River wasn't much of a match in sports, thanks to Vern Long and Pete and others. By the way, I didn't do the cool sports. I did those with no cheerleaders, cross country and track. I got my coaches over there. But nonetheless, I decided to introduce Tom because he is truly deserving of being introduced or inducted into the Hall of Fame. So let me tell you why. Professionally, Tom has done what few people have, and he's survived and thrived in the ever-shifting media business. He gives hope to current journalists and aspiring journalists because he is proof, and I know this is a mouthful in the era of fake news, that intelligence and honesty still count for something. Tom retired last year from WKYC Channel 3 as a senior correspondent after 37 years of covering stories in Northeast Ohio. Now, just take a minute. 37 years, I don't know, we've all worked long, but there's something unique about it. Tom spent 37 years with the same television station, Channel 3, the last 18 as political correspondent. Let me put that into perspective. That would be the equivalent of LeBron James and Kyrie Irving spending their whole career at Cleveland. Tom does not have any championship rings, but he has won 4 Emmys, 2 for investigative reporting. He is a member of other Hall of Fames. This one will be the best, no doubt. The Cleveland Press Club. He's won Distinguished Service Awards from the Society of Professional Journalists, Broadcast Writing Award from the Associated Press. After graduating from Westlake, Tom earned 2 degrees from Northwestern University. That is an impressive pedigree for someone who now lives in Rocky River. Tom began his Northeast Ohio journalism career as an intern and a copy boy at the Cleveland Press. And in case you didn't notice, he has now outlasted the press, which is long gone. Tom, as part of his job at Channel 3, hosted a program that I know he secretly spent most of his week working on, Between the Lines, a weekly political show that aired on Sunday mornings before NBC's Meet the Press. And that's where I really got to know Tom. I was lucky enough to be invited on as a guest. I will say that I was frightened every time I was on the show, because anybody that knows Tom or has watched the show knows that he tried to put 10 pounds of potatoes in a 5-pound sack every week. And that means I could barely clear my throat and make a point before he was signaling off camera for me to get moving, and that was tough. I think he's made me a better journalist as a result. The show had a really, really wide influence, and sadly something that ratings couldn't fairly measure or appreciate. I had more people recognize me from that show than I'm now 18 years at the Plain Dealer. And more people tell me things and that they've heard things from that show. And that says a lot. As a journalist, I recognize that Tom offered stuff that's missing today, like a Rolodex and the respect to get people to call back when you use it. Millennials today, and I'm sorry I'm picking on millennials, but they're the next generation. I'm Generation X. They don't know what a Rolodex is, and as our TV friends know, that they still trip over how to pronounce Chardon correctly. It's not a hard CH. Tom survived, even as his competitors tried the in-your-face journalism and, quite frankly, hired far more attractive reporters. Tom relied on his wits and his shoe leather, not toupees and gimmicks. He never wore a trench coat. He has covered many controversial and colorful politicians. Many we all know, James Traficant, Jimmy DeMora, and others. And if Dennis Kucinich runs for governor, I have no doubt that Tom will have to come out of retirement and continue that. One of the nicest or poignant comments made about Tom when he retired was from a colleague of his, Russ Mitchell, who had moved to Cleveland, a handful of years ago, was not from here originally. Russ told the Plain Dealer that Tom is the beating heart of our newsroom. My crash course in Cleveland, Ohio politics in the weeks before I got here was binging on his Between the Lines programs. Tom's talent, insight into the state, and the people who make it tick will be missed. What's even better is he's a really good guy. And before Tom retired, because he was a great reporter and a good guy, he received something that I'm sure few, if any, Westlake graduates have received or may ever receive, and that is his own street. I don't know if you realize this, but Cleveland Mayor Frank Jackson presented Tom with a proclamation naming a stretch of Lakeside Avenue where Channel 3 sits today on the lakefront as Tom Barris Way. It has a sign, and I drive by it all the time and makes me think of Tom. So mission accomplished there. Tom, of course, didn't like this. He said as a journalist, it's a little uncomfortable having people throwing lollipops and roses your way. But tonight, we're throwing compliments and rubber chicken, so it's well-deserved. And that's why it is my pleasure to introduce him for this Hall of Fame. Thank you.
You know, the bad news is I have my own street, but I'm also responsible for filling the potholes and plowing the snow on it, so it ain't quite what it's cracked up to be. It's dangerous when you have a guy whose whole career has been spent talking about reality and events in segments of a minute 30 a night, and to give him, I don't want to say unlimited, but you know, maybe 5-10 minutes to just ramble on, so this could be kind of dangerous. I want to thank Mark Namick very much for that exaggerated and you know, over the top and excessive introduction. You know, those of you who have diabetes or sugar issues, I do, you may find it's flaring up again after all that. I persuaded Mark to do this again, not just because we are journalists who admire each other and their work, but as he said, also because he was a frequent guest commentator, throwing his 2 cents into that whiz-by 10 minutes of this and that on Sunday morning segment we used to do Between the Lines. But also I think because I hit the button that he talked about, the loyalty and devotion to his alma mater, Westlake High School. Again, he being a much later vintage graduate than myself. I'm sure many of you know his work from The Plain Dealer and Cleveland.com. I mean, for my money, he is perhaps among active journalists now in Cleveland, the best connected, the most enterprising, and in many ways the most insightful reporter on a lot of subjects working in Cleveland. So you see anything with his byline on it, it's worth your time to sit back and take a moment or two to read it. Right now he's engaged in, I think, Cleveland.com and Plain Dealer's biggest mission, a big project called A Greater Cleveland, where he's trying to enlighten us and, along with some of his colleagues, help us better understand why so many young people in the city of Cleveland face such an impossible, uphill, challenging flight for reasons of poverty and unemployment and hopelessness and lack of respect for education, inferior school system. So again, I mean, they are telling stories in very compelling and impactful ways. Again, I think that would be worth your time should you have the opportunity to check those out. So again, thank you, Mark, very much for that lavish Valentine there. Well, tonight I am feeling like I am kind of in a life cycle. The last time that I had any involvement with Westlake High School, it was at the end of my school career there as a senior, going off into a great unknown, uncharted world, the college experience. And again, here I am tonight as a senior, albeit of a different kind, but also, you know, moving and traversing and trying to navigate my way through the new path of quasi-retirement here, trying to find some way to balance the restful and enjoyable with the relevant. And to those of you who have already embarked on that path, you know how difficult it is to maybe find the perfect symmetry here. Now, this whole experience, being nominated for this, has given me a chance to blow cobwebs off an awful lot of memories, and that's been very enjoyable. Again, I graduated in 1968. That's almost 50 years ago. Well, here's an impressive thing. I do remember my locker combination is 9/31/17. How about that? But some other memories I got in the Wayback Machine just involved, for instance, the teachers at Westlake High, many of them who got me on the road to my long and checkered career here. There's especially English and speech. There was Mr. Holloway, an honors teacher. He's about this big, well, maybe a little bigger, but I mean, he was a very strong proponent of read as much as you can read. He also had a very wicked and mischievous chuckle that sounded like a demented leprechaun. But he did an excellent job of teaching us to write clearly and think clearly, and I'm very grateful to him. There was another English teacher, Nadine Keyes, Mrs. Keyes, who the great irony here is she was married to a man who played the television Christmas character, Mr. Jingling. Can you make that up? Mrs. Keyes married to Mr. Jingling. It was also Mrs. Lippi. She was a wonderful speech teacher, and again, who taught you to organize your thoughts, be able to take an issue and argue the pro side and the con side interchangeably. You know, so good practice for being a lawyer, which I didn't become, but which my wife is, arguing both sides of the case. And then there was Mrs. Zimmy, the calculus teacher, who had the very difficult job of trying to get beyond quadratic equations with me, and that very much like pouring water on a stone, trying to get any of that to sink in. And it was very, very obvious that my career was not going to be a science, math, or tech one. There also wasn't much hope for me as an athlete either. I played a very, very little bit of baseball as a backup catcher, and about the only thing I caught was a lot of slivers in my rump from sitting on the bench. But I did get pointed in a career direction, joining the school newspaper. And we have some real old souvenirs here, vintage 1967, 1968 green and whites. And look at that really brilliant, colorful layout. It's kind of like a phone book, you know. Not too exciting. But these are editions from when I was a reporter and the news editor. A couple of team members at Westlake High School were nice enough to go scrounging around in the archives and actually dug these out. But I think there's a bigger story here, because 1968, the year that I was actually the editor, all of them are missing. There's got to be a story behind that. So think back again, 1967, 1968, what was going on in the world and in the country? Well, obviously, a lot of turmoil, a lot of change, the civil rights movement, the women's movement, Vietnam, a couple of tragic assassinations, the whole world order was in flux. Well, in our sheltered kind of suburban existence from way back when, if you looked at the subject matter of the papers, you might be feeling like you're a little bit out of touch now. You will find, as I did, articles in here about things like the dangerous lunchtime habit of pitching pennies, whether or not Westlake should have a teen nightclub called the Hullabaloo, whether school jackets should just be green and white, or whether they should have alternate colors in different years. One of the things I found kind of interesting, there was one survey in there about the Vietnam War, and again, with that excellent special, I don't know how many of you might be watching it on public TV now about that, but a majority of the students who were surveyed felt that the Vietnam War was the right thing to be doing, and we should stay there until we won. Just something to think about. But in any case, I found that I liked doing research and asking questions and finding out why things were happening and trying to make the community, the school, a better place. So Westlake High School's guidance counselors, Mr. Nickel is here. Yep. I don't know if you want to take credit for this or not, but you and Mr. Fallon kind of helped me along the road to find Northwestern University with its great journalism school, which is where I wound up starting to actively pursue a career as a reporter. One of the highlights that I had there was in a work-study program where I got to go to Washington and actually covered a fair number of the Watergate hearings. I mean, at the time, didn't realize how historic and profoundly important it was going to be, but my reports were actually heard on the NBC radio station in Chicago, and for a 20-year-old kid, that was fairly heady stuff. Well, the summer before my senior year, a whole lot of things happened that kind of had me going in the direction I wound up rather than the direction that I was going to go as a newspaper reporter. Mark mentioned the Moment of Silence died and gone to heaven Cleveland Press newspaper. And I'd worked there, and they had promised me that there would be a full-time reporter's job when I graduated from college. Except the summer before my last year of college, there was a whole set of circumstances where I was working as kind of a cub reporter. I kind of stumbled on a really, really, really good story, researched it, wrote it, and it was all kind of puffed up expecting my very first front page byline. And then the editor said, this is pretty important stuff. We better have a real reporter check it out. And so they did that. And so while the real reporter was doing all the same work I had already done, the story wound up appearing in the Plain Dealer. And so I guess maybe I said some, not too smart or uppity or inappropriate things. And as a result, the job they promised me suddenly went. And so I had the opportunity to go back for a 5th year of broadcasting training. And when I got out of that, I basically blanketed Ohio with audition tapes. And the very first news director to respond was a fellow down in Dayton who, mind you, this was back in the days of diversity starting to be important, where he's trying to build a staff of what I call kind of a Noah's Ark newsroom. A couple of these and a couple of these and a couple of these. And when I went down for the interview, well, you should know my last name is Barris. the ethnic pronunciation would be Berish. And he had sort of a different take on it. So I sat down for the interview. It was, Mr. Perez, do you have any experience covering labor unions? Yes, sir, I do. And the name is actually Barris. Okay. Mr. Perez, what do you know about county government? A little bit. I haven't actually had a lot of, okay. But again, the name is Barris. Okay. Mr. Perez, are you a self-starter? Yes, I think I am. And the name is Barris. So after about a dozen of these exchanges, it was pretty obvious that he had this pretty much locked into his brain. So he hired me, thinking that I was Puerto Rican. True story. And with that wrong-headed decision, a 43-year career was launched. So after 5 years in Dayton as a sometime anchorman and reporter, I came back here to my hometown in Cleveland, which was my next life's goal objective. I actually didn't think I was going to be there for 37 years. I actually wound up working for 15 different news directors, which if you stop and think about, do the math, it says something about the job security of the news director's job. But one of them, my final boss, Brennan Donlan, sitting at a table over here, and I very much enjoyed working the last couple of years of my career under his tenure. And I should also add one of my colleagues surprised the heck out of me by showing up, Monica Robbins, our excellent health reporter, at the table back here. So anyway, 37 years, I proved I had good survival skills and became kind of the poster child for professional stagnation. In my career, I got to see the best and the worst that humanity has to offer. Interviewed 5 different presidents, covered 5 Cleveland mayors from Kucinich to Jackson, 6 governors, 6 U.S. senators from Ohio, and I very much enjoyed having a ringside seat, watching history unfold on a day-by-day basis and trying to figure out what was important and explain it to, the folks who relied on us, viewers and readers of our website. Again, I'm also grateful to have my many family members here. I'll talk about the best extra benefit of the job, meeting my wife. My lovely wife, Susan. Wave. So back in the days when I didn't just cover politics for a very long time, I was a general assignment reporter. I was assigned to cover this very sensational, oh my gosh, trial of a serial killer who thought that he was like a latter-day reincarnation of Adolf Hitler. Would walk into court every day with the bangs and the mustache and Sig Heil the judge and knock his microphone. No. And it was a real matinee draw reality show. There weren't enough seats in the courtroom. People wanted to see what's going to happen today. And my wife was a lawyer working at the courthouse and came by and was waiting in line to get in with one of her colleagues. And they happened upon a little room off to the side where a lot of the media equipment, the recorders were stashed, and the reporters could sit, the TV reporters, and sort of make, inappropriate, tasteless comments off to the side that nobody in the courtroom would hear. And she and her colleague, am I remembering this pretty much correctly? Okay, she was invited in, came in, sat down, and the rest is history. So the bottom line walk-off of the trial was Mr. Spizak, the defendant in the trial, got the death penalty, and I got a life sentence. That's it. Also here tonight is my brother Ken, also a Westlake High School alumnus of circa 1960, and his wife Hazel. And I feel a little bit old because the high school I went to has been demolished and reduced to a pile of rubble. The high school he went to, he's actually 2 high schools removed that have been demolished and reduced to a pile of rubble. My son Marty and his wife could not be here. He works in Boston. But I am fortunate my dear daughter Justine and her girlfriend Ali Fernandez are here from Seattle. And I'm not certain what's going to be more painful for her, sitting through and enduring this or going to the Browns game on Sunday. This award gives me some parent pride and parity because both my son Marty and my daughter Justine have been in the unmentioned Rocky River High School Hall of Fame for a long time, and this gives me a little chest-pounding opportunity here. I want to note it's also great to see a lot of familiar faces here. Lindy Gordon, Mike Antonician, Randy Pease, fellas that maybe had just had occasional contact with over the years, but great to reconnect a little bit. Well, finally, I'd like to dedicate this award to my parents. My dad has been gone 30 years, and my mom is, frankly, not well enough to be here tonight. Neither one of them were able to attend college, but they made sure that Ken and I did. For better or worse, my mom actually made me look up 10 new vocabulary words every day for about 6 years, and so that's why I know a lot of really obscure, nobody uses them words, but if I were still covering politics, I probably would have exhausted and used every one of them trying to describe what's going on at the White House and what's going on in Washington and on our political landscape. So I've decided, as I did, to maybe step aside and let some brighter, younger, more social media savvy reporters like Mr. Namick try and make sense of all of it. And I want to say that I am also honored to be inducted in the company of Karen, George, and Ken, and the Dean family and all the wonderful things they did for the school system. Karen, my son actually went to Notre Dame, but you didn't overlap, so I missed the opportunity to see your glory days on the court. And I think George and Ken, our time overlapped at schools, but I don't think we actually had any classes or teams or experience together. But again, congratulations to everybody on their achievements. And I want to make a final thank you. Get the guy off the stage already. To my former neighbor, Mary Beth Schneidler. Frankly, I think her fingerprints might be on my selection a little bit. I don't know. But I want to thank her for organizing this whole shindig and kind of being the pole holding up the tent here. So I just want to say thank you for everyone who's responsible for letting me take this very nice trip down memory lane and add one more nice memory to it tonight. So, thank you. Uh-oh.
Each of the inductees, I think this is the best thing, will receive, Tom, I know you don't have one of these.
Oh, my God.
This is a lifetime pass to all Westlake events, school events. So
Priceless.
priceless. And Tom is exactly right. We grew up together. He lived across the street from me the entire time. We spent a lot of time at a bus stop, a lot of time. We had to walk down and get on the bus together with everybody that lived on, I think there were 13 houses on the street. So we spent a lot of quality time together.
Right.
But then he was just excelling so much in high school that he just took all the things ahead of me that I could follow and try to follow in his path. Mrs. Lippi, Mr. Holloway, all those people, just incredible people at the high school. So Tom, congratulations.
Thank you very
It
much.
means a lot to me. And moving along, our next presenter is Julie Feldner, a 1996 graduate of Westlake High School, and she will be introducing Karen Swanson-Hahn, who's being inducted into the Athletic Hall of Fame. And I just have to say, she was one of my students, and I just think that is sort of dates me a little bit, but it was in elementary. So I was able to follow her all the way through. So Julie.
For you who don't know me, my name is Julie Felder, as Mary Beth, Mrs. Schneidler said. We are. And I am Karen Swanson Hahn's sister. I have the honor tonight of introducing her. And while I could spend my entire allotted time talking about Karen, my sister, you wouldn't believe the stories I could tell. Boogers she stuck on our bedroom wall. Rotten orange peels she put in the neighbor's mailbox. Trips she took onto the roof of our house, and dozens, and yes, I mean dozens of stitches. I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about the many amazing roles my sister Karen has taken on. She's quite an amazing woman, and I hope to give you all a small glimpse into what makes her the very special person she is. It's only fitting that I begin with Karen the athlete. I've watched her through the last 3 decades demonstrate grit and determination, a passion for excellence, and a commitment to her team. Her drive and competitive nature have always been a large part of who she is. At a very young age, we all realized her distaste for losing. We had weekly neighborhood kickball games with my father as the all-time pitcher. More often than not, our games ended with Karen angrily stomping into the house and insisting that Dad was way harder on her than anyone else. It just wasn't fair and was definitely the reason she lost. Her competitive nature, fierce drive, and commitment to excellence served her well in her athletic pursuits. At Westlake High School, Karen earned 11 varsity letters in basketball, volleyball, and softball. She earned first team all-district honors in basketball and volleyball and was the basketball MVP of the SWC conference her junior year. Her accolades extended into her leadership role both on and off the court. She was selected as team captain for volleyball, softball, and basketball. She was awarded the Ohio High School Athletic Association Scholar Athlete Award, the Ohio High School Basketball Coaches Award, First Team Academic All-Ohio, and the Archie Griffin Sportsmanship Award as a senior. Karen the athlete's story would have many achievements and a wonderful ending if her playing days had ended at Westlake High School. But for those of us who know her well, Karen dreams big and the sky is the limit. Since she was a little girl, all Karen wanted to do was play basketball for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. She bled blue and gold. Through the power of hard work and positivity, grit and determination, Karen earned the only walk-on spot and joined the University of Notre Dame women's basketball team her freshman year and played through her senior year. But I would be remiss if I didn't also mention Karen's unwavering drive toward her goals, even ones others believed were impossible. While trying out for the Notre Dame team, St. Jude became her companion, as he is fittingly the patron saint of impossible causes. At Notre Dame, Karen was a monogram winner all 4 years she played basketball. Through her contribution, Karen's Notre Dame basketball team made it to the Sweet 16 of the NCAA women's tournament her junior and senior years. Her commitment to the sport, love of the game, and undeniable effort was solidified upon being a part of the team that won the NCAA Women's Basketball National Championship her sophomore year. Once again, while at Notre Dame, Karen proved that her strengths lay both on and off the court. She was a perennial crowd favorite, having the support of both the student body and the women's basketball fan base in South Bend. She was selected as team captain her senior year. She earned Big East Conference Scholar Athlete honors all 4 years at Notre Dame and was awarded the St. Joseph Valley Rockne Student Athlete Award as both a junior and senior. Moving on from Karen the athlete, I cannot introduce her without touching on Karen the lawyer. Karen graduated from Cleveland Marshall College of Law summa cum laude and fourth in a class of 181. She took a prestigious position with Baker Hostetler here in Cleveland, where several of her cases were litigated in court. She also found a calling working on pro bono cases the firm took on. It spoke to her strong moral compass and willingness to go the extra mile to help others. Her career path took her next to a coveted position with the United States Attorney's Office here in Cleveland. She was one of 2 applicants selected out of over 800 candidates to fill the role of Assistant United States Attorney. She has held this position since 2015 and has balanced her time and talent while also assuming an adjunct legal studies professorship both at Cleveland Marshall and Ursuline College. I've seen her work tirelessly to promote her firm's sense of ethics while utilizing her intelligence to serve those around her. This is probably neither the time nor the place, but I sure could tell a good story or two about the hot political debates that happen around our family dinner table. Don't get in the way of Karen and her political leanings, as there's black and white and no shades of gray. A picture of Karen would also not be complete without talk of Karen, the wife and mother. Karen has been married to Justin for 11 years, and together they have 2 beautiful sons, Adam and Colin. As a wife, Karen should be commended for her unwavering support, playful, loving nature, and ability to show her true colors. Notice I didn't mention her amazing prowess in the kitchen. A chef she is not. She has a 5-ingredient recipe rule in that she is unwilling to make any dish that has more than 5 ingredients. Good thing her husband Justin is willing and able in the kitchen. While always demanding more of herself, Karen is an amazing mother, and her 2 young sons should be credited as her greatest achievements. As a mother, she is kind-hearted, tender, and thoughtful in her parenting. Her 2 boys, Adam and Colin, are joys to be around. They are so very fortunate to have a mother who encourages them to be their best selves while wrapping them in love and warmth. And lastly, I offer thanks and gratitude for Karen, the sister and friend. Very few of us are lucky enough to have a partner in crime, lifeline, and best friend in the form of our sibling. Karen and I have been nearly inseparable since the moment she was born. Well, that's not entirely true. As her older sister, I wasn't too wild about her when she was first born. I'm embarrassed to admit it, but when she was just a few weeks old, my 2.5-year-old self secretly bit her big toe in a sign of disgust. I figured if she cried hard enough, my parents might send her back. That moment aside, we've been close all our lives. I deeply admire her adventurous spirit, spunk and tenacity, great sense of humor, and fierce loyalty. Mrs. Schneidler may recall the time at Bassett Elementary that she beat up a boy because he was bothering me on the playground. Keep in mind that I was in 5th grade and she was in 2nd. She's my trusted confidant, sounding board, shoulder to cry on, and bolster that raises me up. I cannot imagine my life without her, my sister and my friend. Because I admire her so, and she's such an important part of my life, it is my honor to introduce to you Karen Swanson Hahn, the amazing athlete, accomplished lawyer, devoted wife and mother, and lifelong sister and friend.
She had to mention the boogers, didn't she? Thank you so much, Julie, for that introduction. I always tell Julie that I'm so glad I had an older sister to do everything first. First one to go to college, First one to get married, build a house, pregnancy, childbirth, parenting, and now first one to take the mic this evening. She's always been my amazing trailblazer, but more importantly, as she said, she's always been my best friend. So I can't think of anybody who was better to introduce me this evening than my sister, Julie. Love you. Thanks also to Mrs. Schneidler, Megan, and the Westlake Alumni Association for all that you've done for today's honorees, both in the selection process and in organizing all of these wonderful festivities. Yes, I was in Mrs. Schneidler's classroom. What she failed to mention is that for approximately the first 2 or 3 weeks, almost every day, I reported to her with an unbearable stomach ache because I had one of the worst cases of separation anxiety probably she'd ever seen in her career, and found it a very effective way to be sent home. So thank you to everyone who's gathered here today. I really can't begin to express how incredibly honored and excited I am to be receiving this special award, and how nice it is to see so many faces that I haven't seen in a very long time. This award is particularly meaningful for me because it's in the category of athletics. As many of you know, sports have always been a very important part of my life. So this evening I'd like to share with you 3 short stories, each about a way that Westlake sports and sports in general have impacted me through the years, and each of which is ultimately a message of gratitude. The first story is about my childhood, and it's really about one of my mom's favorite sayings. She likes to say that sports saved me. In my early years, I was what you might call a spirited child, and my intense energy and emotions often manifested themselves physically. I would pick fights with other children on the elementary school playground. I remember one fight where I broke another child's gold First Communion bracelet. I remember that time I beat up the kid for picking on my sister. And despite standing up for my siblings at school, at home, they were the target of my ire. During altercations, they would run and hide behind my mom or my dad when I got that glint in my eye. I also exhibited a total lack of regard for physical risks, injuring myself constantly, whether it was climbing a chain link fence, which won me 13 stitches, finding creative new ways to ride bicycles, which resulted in bloody, mangled knees, wrestling with my brother, which gave me a busted upper lip, practicing head-first slides, just for the heck of it, more stitches, this time on my chin, or an unusually aggressive game of catch that earned me a knot on my forehead the size of a golf ball. Needless to say, the ER doctors at St. John's came to know us by name, and my parents started answering calls from the school office with, "What did she do now?" At some point, my parents enrolled me in the Westlake Youth Soccer Program, and I took to it immediately. In soccer, I found a productive outlet for all of this energy, and I also simply loved the game. In fact, I loved soccer so much that I would let virtually nothing stand in my way of playing. When I had that injury with the 13 stitches, I was about 7 years old, and my doctor happened to live a couple streets over from us. About a week after he put the stitches in, I snuck out, rode my bike to the doctor's house, and asked him to take the stitches out so I could play soccer the next day. Shockingly, he obliged. It wasn't long before the Westlake Soccer Association turned into travel soccer, Westlake softball, travel softball, Westlake volleyball, club volleyball, Westlake basketball, and AAU basketball. I simply could not get enough. When our family would get dressed to the nines for a special event, I would go outside in my dress and my heels to squeak out just a few extra minutes of shooting hoops in the driveway before we left. We had one neighbor who, to this day, recalls hearing a bouncing basketball nearly every night, even in the winter, and often well after dark. Although my parents were probably thrilled that I'd found my passion, it did not come without a price. First and foremost, to their home. Like the time I shattered a lamp with a basketball, or the time I broke their brand new sectional couch playing tackle football, or the time I threw an errant fastball straight through the front window. But more importantly, it did not come without a price to my parents' daily lives. My involvement in sports was a huge commitment for them, carting me to practices and games all year round, often with 2 seasons taking place simultaneously. I remember driving with my dad to so many summer camps and weekend tournaments for AAU or club volleyball, stopping for meals at Bob Evans and Waffle Houses across the state. My mom would put notes in my lunches on game days with scripture passages, motivational sayings, or her own encouraging words. When it came time for me to select a college, my parents gave me the financial freedom to chase my dream of playing for Notre Dame, which was the far more expensive option rather than accepting a scholarship to play elsewhere. Through it all, my parents rarely missed a game, and that goes for both high school and college. So when my mom says that sports saved me, this is indeed quite true. But what also saved me were my parents, who sacrificed their own time for my athletic pursuits, who helped me manage my unique temperament without crushing my spirit, who navigated all of those circumstances in the early years with love and patience, and who supported me quite literally every step of the way. Mom and Dad, I never would have found sports and could never have pursued them as far as I did without the two of you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. This brings me to my second story. These stories are turning out to be not so short, but this is a story about my journey through high school and college, about the many amazing people that sports placed in my path along the way, and some of the lessons that I learned. Coming into high school, sports morphed from my saving grace to my true love, and ultimately the object of my personal mission. I had so much fun playing sports. I enjoyed class, but I craved competition. And for me, basketball was the ultimate. As a junior in high school, I realized that I loved playing basketball so much that I would never, ever be ready to give it up at graduation. At the same time, I so desperately wanted to attend Notre Dame, and this seemed to me at the time like such a predicament, such an either-or proposition. Either go to Notre Dame or continue playing basketball. Until one day, I simply resolved that I would do them both. I said to myself, I can and I will. My mission became like a giant Greyhound bus barreling down the highway, and you were either on the bus or off. And I have to say, there were so many amazing people who hopped on that bus with me for the ride. First, I had some incredibly special basketball teammates. I remember my very first varsity game as a freshman. Jackie Holton was a senior. I was scared out of my wits, but she patiently directed me where to go. Margot Shumway was instrumental in my sophomore season. An incredible athlete in her own right, Margot showed me both how to work hard and how to laugh hard. As a junior, Christy Caratelli took me under her wing. We had so much fun driving to and from practices in Christy's little white car. That junior season was perhaps my favorite of all, the one where we made it all the way to the district championship against Mags. And although we came up just a sliver short, we sure had one hell of a team that year. Along the way, I also played for some amazing coaches. Coach Berkheimer was my volleyball coach for all 4 years and was awesome to play for. Coach Faber was my softball coach for 4 years and was tremendous. And in basketball, I had the great privilege of playing for Coach Wilch, Coach Short, Coach Milky, and Coach Gast. All of these coaches gave me so much encouragement and inspiration along the way. I'd also like to say a special word about Coach Daniels. Although I never actually played for Coach Daniels since he was the boys' coach at the time, he was always there with an uplifting word. He emailed me with motivational messages during the tryout process at Notre Dame, and after I made the team, he even came to some of my college games. I will always be so grateful for the people I met and the opportunities I had in the Westlake school system. It was truly my Westlake teachers and coaches who prepared me for my experience at the University of Notre Dame. Many people ask me what it was like to find out that I made the team. What is it like to run out of the tunnel to the Notre Dame fight song? What's it like to win a national championship? And what was it like to meet then President George W. Bush in the Oval Office? These were indeed all of the eminently cool and also simultaneously very surreal parts of playing basketball for Notre Dame. In particular, I will never forget looking up in the stands after winning the national championship and seeing all of my family up there, including my 2 uncles who had flown in just for the game. I would also be remiss if I didn't mention here the important lesson I learned that truly anything is possible with hard work and determination. But there is another piece of my experience at Notre Dame that is oftentimes overlooked. And that is, it was very difficult for me to adjust from playing almost every minute of the game I so loved to playing almost 0 minutes. Many people warned me that even if I made the team at Notre Dame, I might not actually play. In retrospect, they were right. But that experience taught me more about teamwork and humility than I would ever have learned otherwise. I don't know that I truly understood the meaning of a team when I played at Westlake. I didn't understand the sacrifices made by those who showed up and ground it out at practice every day, or in the weight room, or on road trips, or at 5 a.m. workouts, all in hopes of little more than a minute of playing time. Nor did I understand their contributions, but I do now. I will forever be indebted to 2 of my college teammates for not only teaching me the value of the 12th woman, but softening the blow that inevitably comes with this lesson. Although they're not here tonight, Megan Leahy and Imani Dunbar were instrumental in helping me adjust to this new role at Notre Dame. They are phenomenal human beings and 2 more remarkable people who crossed my paths in sports. That brings me to my 3rd story, which I promise is the shortest. This last story is about some of the more recent gifts I've received through sports. These days, sports are a great stress relief for me as I confront the challenges of the legal profession and the demands of parenthood. I've come to appreciate athletics as part of my fabric, a place where I can reconnect with my inner child and rediscover pieces of myself when they seem to go missing. To me, sports are, and always will be, home. Speaking of home, it was ultimately through sports that I met my husband, Justin. I'm not sure if he really knew what he was getting himself into that day. He challenged me to a game of one-on-one. Although we still have differing recollections of the outcome, I'm so glad I accepted his challenge that day. Jay, I'm grateful for the many ways that you have supported my professional and athletic ambitions over the years, for the way that you have embraced my crazy, and for our two beautiful children. Back when we played that game of one-on-one, who would have thought that 18 years later we'd have two feisty little ballers of our own? So in a way, I guess you could even say that I have sports to thank for my two greatest blessings of all. In conclusion, I would like to share with all of you the silent prayer that I offered before each game at Westlake and at Notre Dame. I thanked God for the gift of athletics, and I asked him to help me use my gift in service. I hope that I did that. I hope that I used my gift to serve God and my family, my coaches and my teammates, the fans and the student athletes who followed in my footsteps, the University of Notre Dame, and the city of Westlake. I hope that my play somehow brought light into the lives of others. For all that sports gave to me, for saving me from myself, for the angels it sent me and the lessons it taught me along the way, and for the things I continue to receive from athletics today. I hope I gave back to sports by honoring the blue and gold and the green and white each time I had the great privilege of suiting up. Thank you again from the bottom of my heart, Mrs. Schneidler, for this incredible honor. And congratulations to all of my fellow inductees this evening. Go Irish and go Demons.
Make sure I have the right one. I do. That's awesome. Congratulations on this. How nice, how nice. Thank you. Our next inductees are being inducted into the Honorary Hall of Fame at Westlake, and Jeff Chase will introduce our first one.
Tom, I was impressed that you remembered your locker combination. That's really unbelievable. However, I think I can go one better. I remember my girlfriend's locker combination. Sandy Weber, 14, 28, 36. Her locker was right outside of 209, the study hall. Congratulations, Karen, and congratulations, Tom. Before I begin my remarks on George Christ, I was asked to read this email that was sent to Mary Beth. This evening, it is my joy to be able to express my deepest appreciation to the Dover Westlake Alumni Association for their decision to recognize Mr. George Christ as a member of their Honorary Hall of Fame. I've known George for many years. George is my brother-in-law, married to my youngest sister, Betty, who also taught in the Westlake School District for many years. George is a man of great depth, empathy for others, a person of integrity, and a role model for his family and all those he's touched during his years as an educator. When he was actively involved in his career, he was fully involved. Many persons do just a little as possible. George always did more than what was expected. He has loved his years in education, both as a teacher and an administrator, but continues in retirement to work with young people through his work with boating and officiating at track meets. He's a good neighbor, an active member of his church, and is admired for his work with community work such as Kiwanis. I have appreciated having George as a brother and a friend. Your community is lucky to have him among you. Sincerely, Reverend Harriet Santos. I think I should sit down. Seriously, I am most proud to have the opportunity to introduce my friend, former neighbor, former coach to the Westlake Alumni Hall of Fame. When I think back to George's wonderful career, I think about all the years that we've remained as friends. George is a rarity these days as he spent his entire career with the Westlake Public School District. At times during his career, he had a chance to leave the district, perhaps to gain a better position, or maybe make a little more money. But George Christ's belief is to be dedicated, and dedicated George is indeed. George Christ is a Westlake demon through and through. Teacher, neighbor, father, loving husband, scoutmaster, principal, assistant superintendent, and yes, George even drove the Boy Scout bus. He also worked in the summer as a maintenance worker for the school. Some might say that George was a jack of all trades and a master of none. However, I know, and those who know George, have come to find out that your work was done with quiet excellence. Most of his adult life, George lived on what most folks call the Coaches Street. As many as 5 coaches, all in the Southwestern Conference, I might add, lived on Oakmore in Bay Village. Perhaps that's where George's competitive spirit was groomed. George was our first Demon cross-country coach. A runner himself, George brought the Demons their first Southwestern Conference championship in cross-country, beating the field, including rival Bay Village. It's always good to beat Bay. George was a distance coach for many years for the Demon track team, grooming many regional and state qualifiers. George's love of cross-country and track led to his becoming an accomplished track official. George has always enjoyed a lifetime of coaching friendships with fellow coaches and athletes alike. When I sat down and talked with George, he told me he was a Spanish teacher. Who knew that? You're going to have to explain that one, George. Most know him as a social studies teacher starting at the middle school level. He loved the classroom but left to become a principal at the middle school level and an assistant principal at the high school level. George's love of learning and leading others made many a classroom and any school a place where students needed to be and wanted to be. George made learning an investment for his students, and he is an important reason why the Westlake schools enjoy the reputation of educational excellence. George is a teacher's teacher, to be sure. As a scoutmaster, George enjoyed going on campouts and teaching young men outdoor skills. George's loving wife, Betty, and his lovely daughter, Ellen, enjoyed them as well because that got the boys out of the house. George also acted as the headmaster of the Mohican Outdoor School, spending time in the outdoors teaching young folks the love of nature. Speaking of the Christ family, George and Betty, as I've said, have 3 wonderful children. Ellen, an excellent teacher with the North Olmsted School District, Andrew, a college football coach at Central Connecticut College, and Ryan, a captain in the United States Marine Corps. And interestingly, as a scoutmaster, George mentored many young scouts who became officers in the military, including my own son. George has always had a love of water. He has for many years taught the younger generation water safety and sailing. The Bay Village Spirit of American Boating program was certainly enhanced by George Christ's teaching. This love of teaching and the love of young people extends to so many, many young folks who have gained very much from this quiet leader. In fact, one of George's favorite quotations is, "What you do speaks louder than what you say." And clearly tonight we hear very loudly about your career, George. I must close with one little story. I think this speaks volumes for George. When George was the summer school principal, he had the unfortunate circumstances to suspend a young man for smoking. And I understand, and I have it on good authority, that the young man's mother was not very happy. In fact, she was very irate and called George's boss, the superintendent. And this is what the quote the superintendent told me. "Just who does this Christ guy think he is?" George, you're good, but you're not Christ. My friend, George Christ.
Thank you. It's really great to be here and an honor to be recognized with these other outstanding people, Karen, Tom, Kenny, and the Dean family. It's really, can't tell you how much it means to me. I was lucky enough to come to Westlake back right out of college. Was interviewed by Frank Walter, superintendent at the time, and he just happened to stop at Otterbein to talk to me after he got his doctor's degree. And I was like, Westlake, that's that place you drive through going from Parma to Avon Lake. And that's about as much as I knew about Westlake. But it's obviously been a great place to spend my career, the time there. And just a couple quick stories. One of the best things that happened to me was my second year teaching. I remember sitting in the gym and watching Dale King, who was principal at the time, walk this young lady through the hallways. And she was from Miami, and I said, not bad, you know. And she wasn't. I'll live that one down. But it was Betty Clendenin, and the next year she became an English teacher. And we had the advantage of teaching across the hallway. And after some time, we dated, got married, and I remember when she came back the next September, the kids said, "Oh, you're married. Now you're Mrs. Clendenin." And she said, "No, I'm Mrs. Christ." And she said, "You married that guy?" So, you know, that she had to live with that burden. But I think the thing that I remember the most, or that I'm impressed the most with, as Jeff said, I spent my whole career in Westlake, is the people, the mentors. And to me, mentoring is really the important thing about education. And I had some really great mentors. Larry McLean and I taught together social studies at Parkside. Larry mentored me, and you know, everything that I learned about teaching social studies and so forth wasn't in college. It was in the classroom and watching other teachers like Larry and his example. I mentioned in my little thing I wrote up that one of the greatest curriculums I thought we ever had was our Introduction to Social Studies, where we taught about Greece, Nazi Germany, and India. And just the whole gamut of social studies, and kids learned about all kinds of interesting things, and that was really something very neat. The other mentor I had was a guy by the name of Smith. I don't even I don't know if he's even I don't know if he's even still alive or whatever. But Al Smith was a principal. He ran a tough ship, I'll tell you. He was always at the door of the cafeteria, making sure you got in on time and were dressed properly. I remember one time when he said, "No mustaches, no beards." Today, probably wouldn't happen, but that was Al. But Al was a great mentor to me as an administrator. And I did find out one thing. That was when I was a 7th grader at Parma Shaft, Al was doing some part-time teaching there. So he had more of an influence on me than I knew. He was a phys ed teacher at that time at Parma Shaft. Sorry, Al. Again, another person that had a great influence on me was George Reish. George was high school principal for a number of years. I can remember that he brought me in his office when I was first hired, and he said, you know, don't come to me with your problems. He said, you take care of them. He said, but if you need help or you need advice, feel free to come and talk to me. So we had a lot of talks over those years. But again, George was a person that gave me a lot in terms of help and kind of, you know, you've got to do it. You've got to take care of it. The other person that really was a great influence, and I'll never forget this, when Gary Brewer hung up the track job, they were looking for track coaches, and I had run track at Otterbein and cross country. And one of the things that really attracted me to Westlake was we had the first and only all-weather track in Northeast Ohio at the time. And so put my name in for the job. I was just a couple years teaching, and they picked this guy by the name of Larry Nickel. And unfortunately, the week or two before that, I had a car accident on my way down to Columbus to an event, and totaled my car, had my whole eye cut open. My jacket was a mess, so I had to wear my Otterbein leather jacket. Now, nobody told me that Larry went to Capitol. And I walked in, and he said afterwards, I told my wife, Claudia, this is never going to work. Okay, but we had a great career together, several years coaching track, and then of course cross country started, and we had a lot of fun with track and cross country. I do remember when we tried to bring the idea of cross country to Westlake, there weren't any sidewalks, and everybody was like, you're going to have to do all the running on the track. And I said, no, that's not going to work, or you're not going to train distance runners running around a circle. So we worked it out that we could get out on the roads and so forth. And it's nice today that there's a lot of sidewalks and things to run on. But I've been very fortunate in my career in Westlake. I retired in '99, and then went down, as Jeff said, to spend some time at Mohican Outdoor School. I'd spent 25 years before that, not 25, but total, on their board as a representative of Westlake Schools, and really enjoyed the whole experience of outdoor education. I know Mohican is not where they go now, but I can live with that. But it was a place where kids, 5th and 6th graders, could come, be away from their parents, and really learn about the outdoors. Instead of reading about it in books, they got to touch things, they got to get in the ponds, they got to go in the woods, they got to build shelters, all kinds of neat hands-on things. And that kind of fit right in with the Boy Scout type thing that I'd been involved in, of getting kids outdoors. I remember Bill Bowles one year brought kids down from Parkside, and I said, Bill, we need corn to feed the birds and the squirrels. I said, take the kids on a hike over there in the cornfield, and if the farmer's already gone through and harvested the corn, pick up the stuff that the machines didn't get. Well, they hadn't done the field yet. And the kids were amazed to find out how corn grew in the field. It was really an experience that these kids didn't know how corn grew. Although they drove by I-75 and all those highways with corn, never had an idea. And I think they took about 20 bushels out of that acre of the field. But again, I want to thank a lot of those people. There's several of former athletes here. One in particular that I was very pleased to see, Lindy Gordon was captain of my first cross-country team back in, I won't say when, Lindy, but it was a while ago. I do want to mention my family. I mentioned meeting Betty at Westlake, and I remember Frank Walter at our first convocation after we were married told the whole staff that this is the advantages of team teaching. And Betty's been the one who's raised the family while I was going off to graduate school, getting different degrees, coaching track, coaching cross country, even coached a little basketball there in 7th grade. And she's the one who was always home, taking kids here, there, and everywhere. So a lot of this I obviously owe to Betty and her motherly love of the family. My daughter's here, Ellen, and her husband, Tom, and I appreciate them coming tonight. Ellen's a teacher in North Olmsted, as Jeff mentioned. My sister's here from the Massillon area. Tuslaw. Everybody knows where Tuslaw is. And her husband, Ed. She also is graduated from Otterbein and a career teacher, and Ed was a career teacher. And what a silly guy. He retired from teaching and became an administrator. For about, 15 years, Ed, down at Tuslaw? 13 years, so go from there. Also, two other.
I'd like to also congratulate, and you waved at us earlier, the previous Hall of Famers. You're the guys that set the tone for us. You're the guys that we looked up for, you guys and ladies. So we appreciate you taking the time to be with us. All four of us this evening who are being honored, we appreciate your efforts. What would a perfect day look like in the eyes of Ken Creepop? Well, I'd look to George and myself as administrators solving all the problems of the world. We could come in at early 7 o'clock in the morning, not a thing to do, be kept busy all day long solving all the problems that happen to come up. Well, it comes around 6 o'clock, and it's probably time to go home and try to grab something to eat. So, but we never make it home, so we grab a sandwich along the way over here with things. And at times, we get a quick view of Tom's quick broadcast over here and his expertise on the TV here for about 15 minutes or so. And then we're back off to the high school over here and watching Karen work her magic in another Westlake win. To me, that's a perfect day. That's a perfect day. I'd like to thank Jeff for his kind words. I guess for the most part were kind. I think with that. I hope your nose doesn't grow too much over there, Cyrano. I'm truly honored, very humbled. When I received the letter from Mary Beth, it's not the manly thing to do, but I got a tear in my eye because I thought of all the times, my 31 years here at Westlake, with all of you people here and all the positive things that have taken place. And anybody knows me knows I bleed Dean Green for that. That's very, 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 very important to me. In 1958, long time ago, a young man came to Westlake and played a ball game down at Clegg Park. Now back then, Clegg Park had lights. Hey, they were selling hot dogs. They had all kinds of things, had everything going. This young man was undefeated coming in. Well, it didn't work out that way, so strike one. He lost the game 3-2, the only game he's ever lost.
Bum, 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 bum. High school days. That's when you come in. That's when you come in. Sometimes we have to go through. Oh yeah, I understand now. Bum, 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 bum. Now, high school days are forever dear, but Father Time takes his toll. Yet the memories will still be near as we strive toward our goal. So Westlake, while we are here, let's be friends firm and true. We'll all be faithful, dear alma mater, for we'll always be part of you.
Hello, I'm Thomas Hansen, here with
Larry Dean,
Vicky Dean, and Scott Dean.
Now, the Dean family has had a long history with Westlake. Could you please give a brief synopsis?
Well, my grandfather moved to Westlake in 1924 from Rocky River. started a truck farm and a greenhouse, eventually gave up the outdoor farming for strictly indoor farming, and the greenhouse still exists today.
Now, please explain why you were invited here to this gathering for those celebrated among the Westlake education community.
We've been a major supporter of the community and also the school system ever since the greenhouse has been in existence, and today the Alumni Association honored our family for what we've committed to the community and the schools.
Well, thank you, and on behalf of all Westlake students, past, present, and current, I would like to say thank you.
Thank you.
This has been Thomas Hansen with WHBS. Hello, I'm Thomas Hansen here with WHBS, and I'm with
George Christ.
Now tell me, Mr. Christ, how was it to be honored today?
It was really a great honor. The neat thing was seeing a lot of former students, former athletes, and former teachers that worked with and so forth. And really proud to be a member of the Westlake Dover Alumni Association.
Of all your memories with Westlake, is there one in particular that stands out?
Well, yeah, for me, I think it was coaching. I started the first cross-country team in Westlake in 1967, and in 1970, I had a group of kids, dedicated runners, who won the first SWC championship in cross-country. In fact, I was told that was the first time in 15 years they won an individual, one team. They had some co-championships, but never a one-team champion. So that was kind of neat too. And two of my runners were here tonight at the awards thing. So that was neat.
All right. Well, thank you. This has been Thomas Hansen with WHBS signing off.
Thank you, Thomas.
Hello, I'm Thomas Hansen here with
Tom Barris, Westlake High School graduate circa 1968.
Now, Mr. Barris, please explain the award you got tonight.
Okay, I was given an award for the Westlake High School Hall of Fame, which I understand has been kind of newly re-energized. I'm very, very grateful for the particular award. I'm trying to remember the exact category. I think Distinguished Alumni. I guess that's in the eye of the beholder here, but I was fortunate enough to have a broadcasting career almost exclusively in Cleveland, 37 years at Channel 3, covering the ups, the downs, the victories, the losses, the progress, and the challenges facing Northeast Ohio and Cleveland and Greater Cleveland. Also had the opportunity to cover a couple of stories out here in Westlake involving Mayor Clough, things like water rates, and so I've been very grateful to be able to work my hometown and have that lengthy a career.
Now, who is it you brought to celebrate with you tonight?
Okay, I have Martin Namick from Cleveland.com, who is both a personal friend and sort of a professional rival. He's an extraordinary, excellent writer for Cleveland.com. Was kind enough to make some introductory remarks for me and told a lot of very generous exaggerations and lies. But he also, I think, was willing to do that because he also is a graduate of Westlake High School, albeit a little bit more recent than me. 1985, I think, is here. My wife came. My daughter came with her girlfriend from Seattle, and my brother and his wife, Hazel. My brother Ken, who was also a 1960 vintage Westlake High graduate, came from Detroit. So it's family members and the young man who was nice enough to say some kind words about me.
Thank you, Mr. Barris. This has been Thomas with WHBS. Hello, I'm Thomas here with WHBS, and I'm here today with
Karen Swanson-Hahn.
Now, why were you invited here to this ceremony?
I am the inductee this evening into the Westlake Hall of Fame in the category of athletics.
Okay. Could you please briefly describe what that means?
Well, it's a recognition of my athletic accomplishments at Westlake. I was a volleyball, basketball, and softball player, graduated in 1999, and I'm very excited and humbled to be honored this evening with this award.
How would you say your athletic career with Westlake helped you further on in life?
I think it helped me immensely in sports. You always learn lots of important life lessons like hard work and teamwork and dedication, and all of those things that I learned at Westlake most definitely prepared me for the next chapters.
Thank you. This is Ben Thomas with WHBS. Hello, I'm Thomas Hansen here with WHBS, and today I'm joined by
Ken Krepop, retired athletic director from Westlake High School.
Now, please tell me, why is it that you came here today for this award ceremony?
Well, I had the very great honor of being inducted into this year's class of the Hall of Fame here at Westlake.
Congratulations. Could you please tell us what led them to induct you?
Well, I guess my credentials and 31 years in one place here at Westlake High School as a teacher, coach, athletic director, principal. Wore a lot of hats in my time here at Westlake, a great community.
Across all the hats you wore in your past 31 years at Westlake, are there any particular memories that stand out?
I enjoyed my teaching years as well as coaching. When you get into administration, you get a little distance from your students and your athletes over here, so I missed those.
Well, on behalf of the students of Westlake, current and past, I would like to say thank you for all you've done.